Oh, there's 10 right over there. Of course it is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell a little bit of a story here. You want to we'll swing around here?
Right, so we'll swing around here.
Thank you.
We'll take a look at this place.
This pink building over here in San Francisco is one of many buildings from my family's, on my dad's side's Benevolent Association. And I've never been into it, but my grandfather apparently was pretty involved in the New York one. And I just have a sort of funny story I always tell people about it, which is that it was a Benevolent Association that my grandfather made sound like, well, he made it sound like they would do whatever you need them to do. Because back in the day, when you were an immigrant, especially one who couldn't speak English, my grandfather basically said that, you know, they needed other people who they could trust to rely on them to fix their problems for them. So my grandfather's surname was a certain surname, and all the same people of the exact same surname character would get together. They had an association in Chinatown and all the Chinatowns all over the place, because where my family came from is some of the first Chinese people out to leave China to go into the Americas and other places. And so what they would do is they would try to support each other in all sorts of ways they could, although my grandfather was particularly ambiguous about what that meant. A couple years ago, I took him to a Chinese restaurant and I started talking to him about his life and his association, and my grandfather said, well, you know, we're all supposed to be cousins, we're all in this organization, so we're to help each other. And he said that, you know, back in the day, back when there was a lot more immigration from that part of China, people would have a problem, and if they had a problem, they would contact the association, and the association would fix it for them. And I didn't exactly know what that fixing meant, but I told my grandfather, well, what kind of problem do you mean, Grandpa? And so he said, well, if they had a problem, they would fix it for them. So I presume that from the littlest, tiniest thing, if they had maybe a small, I don't know, leaky faucet, to other things that needed more extreme measures, they would fix those problems for them. Although I don't necessarily know. My understanding now, unfortunately, is that the association really has much more kind of the elderly folks, because there are not many people immigrating from that part of China anymore. My grandfather is probably one of the oldest living members, but I want to share that interesting story because I think people oftentimes give sort of immigrants a bad rap about these types of associations and things like that. People associate them with crime and stuff like that, but you have to remember that, you know, back in the day, if you were an immigrant, you didn't necessarily know who to trust, and sometimes you had to go to people who at least came from where you were from to try and at least figure out some way to kind of have your issues solved. Now, again, that could be from some small, tiny little issue to some really large issue, because again, you may not necessarily have spoken the language. So that's my story, or at least that's what my understanding about my family story is. This association, it's a benevolent association like many other benevolent associations, like the Lions Club or whoever, all those kinds of things. But specifically for immigrants with the last name that my family has. So that's my story.
That's his story.
Yep.
Oh, John, that was an interesting story. Hopefully, you know, we can sneak you inside.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't even speak the language. You could speak the closest language that I could,
oh, yeah?
that they could possibly understand. So
maybe.
Yeah, you know, people often assume just because I have this perfect American accent that I don't actually care about my family or my family's history, but I very much do.